Peace and love, black families. The Prince of Pan-Africanism, Dr. Umar Johnson. Good afternoon to South Africa. Good morning to Black America. I believe it's also good morning to my brothers and sisters throughout England and the United Kingdom. Good morning, good afternoon to the rest of Africa. Good morning, good afternoon to the Caribbean, brothers and sisters in Central South America, Australia, throughout Asia and other places. Canada, shout out. About to head on over. We got another lecture today here in Johannesburg. Dr. Umar Johnson, live and direct. Prince of Pan-Africanism, as only he can do it. I want to talk about the difference between the 504 plan and the IEP. 504 versus the IEP. I get a lot of questions from parents who are confused about the 504 plan versus the IEP. So I'm going to go ahead and break it down as quickly as I can before my ride gets here to take me to the lecture today. Okay, a IEP is a legal special ed contract between a parent and the school district. The IEP is a legal special ed contract between the school district and the parent. You only get an IEP if you've been evaluated, classified with a disability, and determined to need special education. So IEP is the weapon of special education. You only get an IEP if you have a special education disability, a classification. Okay. 504, by contrast, is also a legal contract between the parent and the district. However, the 504 is not a special ed document. The 504 is an accommodations agreement between the parent and the school district. The IEP is a modifications agreement between the parent and the school district. Okay, let's get more specific. If your child needs special education in order to learn, they get an IEP. By contrast, if your child does not need special education, but they do need certain accommodations so that they can receive their education, then they will get a 504 plan. In other words, an IEP is used when a child has a disability, needs special help, and we want to dumb down the instruction. Okay? IEP equals modification. 504 equals accommodation. Let me say this again. IEP equals modification. 504 equals accommodation. Let me say it one more time. IEP equals instructional modification. 504 equals accommodations in the instructional environment so the child can be successful. Okay, let's use the example of an ADHD kid, so-called ADHD kid, because you guys know I don't believe in ADHD. One ADHD kid has an IEP. The other ADHD kid has a 504. Why did one get the IEP and the other get the 504? I'm going to explain it to you. The ADHD kid with the IEP, his ADHD problems and symptoms and challenges are adversely affecting his educational performance. Okay? He needs special ed support because his ADHD is affecting his ability to learn. Okay? To get an IEP, the problem must affect the child's ability to learn. All right? The ADHD kid with the 504. His ADHD does not affect his ability to learn. His grades are good. He does well in school, but he is a behavioral problem. He is a behavioral challenge. He needs accommodations. What are some popular accommodations? A behavior plan is an accommodation. Regular breaks from the classroom is an accommodation. A one-to-one aid is an accommodation. Regular meetings with the school counselor is an accommodation. Extra time to take his tests is an accommodation. Taking his tests in a different room is an accommodation. What is the difference between the accommodations of the 504 and the modifications of the IEP? The difference between the 504 accommodations and the IEP modifications is that with the 504 accommodations, you do not modify the child's instruction. The child with the 504 is in the regular class. He gets the same lessons, the same homework, the same instruction, the same teacher. He's expected to achieve at the same rate as every other child. If you have a 504, academically, nothing changes. We are just going to give you certain supports so you can be successful. But the kid with the IEP, a lot changes. He gets pulled out to go to a special class. He gets special help with other special kids, with a special teacher. Okay, he's no longer expected to achieve at the same level as his regular ed kids. He don't get the same reading no more if he has a reading disability, or she don't get the same math no more because she has a math disability, or they don't get the same type of homework because they have a learning disability. With a 504, you do not change learning. You only provide accommodational supports. With the IEP, you change learning. So I hope everybody clear now. 504, you do not change learning instruction. You do not change learning expectation. You only provide accommodations and supports. IEP, you change learning. IEP, you alter the curriculum. IEP, you change instruction. IEP, the kid might go to a different place. IEP, you have a learning disability. 504, you do not have a learning disability. Now, let me clarify. With a 504, you do not qualify for special education necessarily, but you must have a disabling condition. I want to clarify this. With a 504, you do not qualify for special education necessarily, and I'm going to tell you why I said necessarily in a minute. Okay, you do not qualify for special education, but you do have a disabling condition. So remember last night we talked about the 13 federally defined special ed disabilities to which your state can add extras, right? So the learning disability, intellectual disability, autism, speech and language, emotional disturbance, deafness, blindness, orthopedic impairment, traumatic brain injury, developmental delay, multiple disabilities, other health impairments, okay? So let's say your child don't have none of those. Your child has epilepsy. Your child has diabetes. Your child has conduct disorder. Your child has a disabling condition that does not affect their ability to learn, but affects their ability to adjust, and affects their ability to adapt, and affects their ability to function in school. You see the difference? Now, if that diabetes or epilepsy or ADHD or conduct disorder affects, okay, I will not be apologizing, my brother, because that is correct. Chinese men are marrying Nigerian women. Please get off my page with that dusty Hotepper stuff, because I will delete you. Okay, I only spit facts. I've been to Nigeria multiple times. I know about the Chinese invasion, and it's not just Nigeria. They're invading the entire continent of Africa, and in Nigeria and other countries, Chinese men are marrying African women. So that's a fact. So I'm not apologizing. So show guy, go do your show somewhere else, my brother, before I delete you off my page. Now let me get back to what I'm talking about. Okay, okay. You always get a dusty Hotepper distracting you, but nonetheless, okay, with the 504, the child has a disabling condition. Okay, a disabling condition. Now, if that diabetes or epilepsy or ADHD or conduct disorder, if it affects their ability to learn, they get an IEP. So the same condition can get you an IEP or a 504. I want to be clear. The same disability can get you an IEP or a 504. It depends on whether it affects learning or whether it just affects the child's ability to function in that academic environment. If the ADHD affects learning, IEP. If the ADHD don't affect learning but affects functioning, 504. If the child is epileptic and they're having seizures, and the seizures is messing with their memory and their cognitive functioning, and they need special help because the seizures from the epilepsy is causing learning problems, they get an IEP. If the epilepsy is not causing learning problems, but it is affecting their ability to function, they get a 504. I want to make sure y'all understand that. So you can get an IEP or 504 with almost any condition. It depends on if it affects learning or whether it just affects functioning. If it does not affect learning and only affects functioning, they should get a 504. Okay? Now, the reason schools don't tell parents about 504, they love to steer our parents into IEP. Why? Because they don't get paid for 504. Let me say it again. They don't get paid for 504. Okay? And no disrespect to Show Guy, I'm going to be doing a tour of Nigeria and Ghana in January. Shout out to Ghana. Shout out to my brothers and sisters in Nigeria. Can't wait to get back to Nigeria. My last visit was 2008. Okay, Port Harcourt, Lagos, Enugu State, Abuja. Shout out. So me and Show Guy can have a conversation, respectable conversation between brothers when we meet face to face. All right. But nonetheless, Nigeria and Ghana, mark your calendars. Dr. Umar Johnson will be coming for a national tour of Nigeria and Ghana. Can't wait. West Africa, stand up. But this is South Africa right now. So shout out to Cape Town. Shout out to Pretoria. Shout out to Joburg. Shout out to KwaZulu, Natal. Okay, shout out to everywhere in South Africa. I'm loving it right now. I'm loving the spring. I'm loving the sun. You know I'm a Leo, son of the sun. So that's how we ride. Now, the reason they don't tell parents about 504 is because you don't get paid for 504. Schools do not get money for giving kids 504 plans. So in the ghetto, they don't like to tell black parents about the 504 accommodation because they don't get paid for giving your child a 504 accommodation. I want to make sure everybody's clear. So you have to tell the school, you're not putting my ADHD child in special ed, but you will give him an IEP. You're not putting but you will give him a 504. You're not putting my conduct disorder child in special ed, but you can give him a 504. You're not putting my epileptic child in special ed, but you can give him a 504. Same thing for autism. Same thing for autism. Kid is autistic, but the autism is not affecting their ability to learn. You're not putting my autistic kid in special ed, but you can give my autistic kid a 504. You have to tell the school because schools do not get paid for 504. Let me say it again. Schools do not get paid for 504. Section 504 comes from the 1973 Rehabilitation Act. The 1973 Rehabilitation Act. The 1973 Rehabilitation Act says that all institutions receiving public funds must provide Americans with reasonable accommodations at work, at school, in the community, so that they can function. That's why you have to have elevators in the buildings. That's why you have to have ramps. Why? Because if somebody has to go to work in a wheelchair, okay, physically challenged brothers and sisters have to go to work in a wheelchair, they have to use the ramp. They can't walk up the steps. So that would be a 504 accommodation. You might have a child in a public school where he has to take the elevator. He might have a leg problem, arm problem. That's a 504. And for those of you who work on the job, you can also get 504 accommodations at the job. You was in a car accident, God forbid you in a car accident, or you have a back problem, okay, your job doesn't allow you, your injury doesn't allow you to perform certain functions. Guess what? They have to provide you with accommodations because you cannot discriminate against people on the basis of disability. You cannot discriminate against people on the basis of disability. And guess what? If your child has a 504 plan and the school violates the 504, your child has a 504 plan and the school violates the 504 plan, guess what? You can sue the school for monetary damage. Let me say this again. If the school violates the 504 plan, you can sue the school. You can sue the school for discrimination against disability, for failure to implement the legally binding 504 agreement contract between the school and the parents. Okay? You can contact the Office of Civil Rights. You can contact the Americans Disabilities Association. You can contact the federal government, the governor. You can literally sue. I'm going to tell y'all a little secret. Y'all ready for the secret? I'm going to tell y'all a little teeny secret. 504, viewed from a certain perspective, is more powerful than an IEP. Let me say it again. 504, viewed from a certain perspective, is more powerful than an IEP because 504 is a civil rights statute. That is a civil rights statute. IEP is a special education statute. Okay? So now somebody asked the question, can a child have a 504 and an IEP? Yes. They might have an IEP for a learning disability and a 504 for ADHD. They might have an IEP for autism and a 504 for their hearing impairment. Me personally, as a principal, I don't see a need for both. Why? Because on an IEP, you can add all the accommodations you want. If the child already has an IEP, there is an accommodations page on the IEP where you can put all the accommodations that you want. So do you need a separate 504 if the child already has an IEP? No. However, as a parent, you might want to have both. Why would a parent? So if you got to sue the school, I'm going to take you to due process for violating my child's special ed rights, and then I'm going to sue you in court for money for violating the 504 rights. So from a parent perspective, it might be advantageous to have both. Okay? Let me see if I got any questions. My rod isn't here yet. Can I let the IEP go and pick up the 504? Yes! You have a kid in special ed for ADHD or hearing impairment or autism, and you've now heard this information from Dr. Umar Johnson, and you no longer feel that your child has a problem that affects learning. They don't need special help and to learn. They can learn fine. They just need accommodations. They need regular breaks or extra time to take the tests, or they need to sit in a different classroom, or they need to come to school early, stay late, or ride the bus. Okay, yes, you can call an IEP meeting, exit the child from the IEP, tell them I want my child out of special ed, give me the appropriate paperwork to sign my child out of special education, and then you can request a 504 meeting. In fact, sometimes the IEP team doubles as the 504 team. So as soon as you exit your child out of special ed, the same day, in the same room with the same people, y'all can close out special ed and open up a 504 plan. Yes, you can go from IEP to 504. You can go from 504 to IEP. You can have an IEP without the 504. You can have a 504 without the IEP. It's all about what you think is in the best interest of your child. Now, yesterday we talked about private schools. Private schools have to obey 504 because 504 is civil rights law. So private schools have to obey the 504. Yes, they do. If your child is at a private school, the private school must obey the 504 plan. Okay. Somebody said, can you explain what the 504 is? Okay. No problem. We got some latecomers. All right. The 504 plan is a legal contract between the family and the school district to provide a child with a disabling condition with certain accommodations in the school environment so that they can function as successfully as their non-disabled peers. The 504 is different from the IEP in that the IEP is for kids with learning disabilities that affects their ability to learn. You can only get an IEP if you have a disability that affects your ability to learn. And if you have a disability that affects your ability to learn, you can receive an IEP which will modify your instruction, which means they will change it, they will alter it, they will dumb down the learning. A child with an IEP, if your child has an IEP for a reading disability, they have a different kind of reading instruction, special ed reading teacher, different reading goals. You modify the instruction. With an IEP, you modify the instruction. With the 504, you do not modify the instruction. With the 504, the instruction stays the same, but you provide the child with reasonable accommodations in the school setting so they can function. Accommodations could be as simple as an elevator key. Accommodations could be as simple as a ramp for the wheelchair. Accommodations could be as simple as a one-to-one aid. Accommodations could be as simple as regular breaks from classroom instruction. Yes, Sandra Swink, you can have an IEP and a 504. Who can I call to go to the IEP with me? Well, at present, the National Independent Black Parent Association, we're not taking requests for parent support. We're still organizing. We will be launching officially on January the 1st. Okay, launching officially on January the 1st. Okay, and if you need somebody to go with you, first of all, if you got questions about the IEP, you should call my Tuesday morning Black Parent Teleconference. Every Tuesday morning from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I do the call. And what I'm probably going to do while I'm in Africa is I'm going to do it by Facebook Live. I'm probably going to give it a shot by Facebook Live and just have people type their questions in so the long distance phone calls don't hurt my bill too much. Shout out to East Africa. I will be in Nairobi. Shout out to Kenya. Shout out to the entire East African family. Shout out to Sudan. Shout out to Somalia. Shout out to Eritrea. Shout out to Ethiopia. The Prince of Pan-Africanism is here on the continent, and I'm hoping to see all my brothers and sisters at the Jomo Kenyatta University in Nairobi, October 18th and 19th. Okay, October 18th and 19th, Dr. Umar will be there. The conference is from the 17th through the 20th, but I will be there the 18th and the 19th. So I want my Ethiopian brothers and sisters to come out, my Eritrean brothers and sisters, my Somalian brothers and sisters, my Sudanese brothers and sisters, my Ugandan brothers and sisters, my Malawian brothers and sisters. I'm hoping all y'all will come on out. Okay, we are 6 hours ahead. Where I am in South Africa, we are 6 hours ahead of U.S. Eastern Standard Time. So whatever time it is in the East Coast, add 6. If you Central Time, add 7. Okay, if you West Coast, I guess you got to add 9. 9 hours ahead. Okay, so what was I saying? I had an ADHD moment. If the school doesn't comply, they are breaking the law. Yes, you can sue the school. You can get a lawyer and sue for disability discrimination if the child has a 504 plan. How long will you be in Kenya? Brother Samuel, I will be in Kenya the whole 19th, the 18th, the 19th, and most of the 20th. I think the brothers and sisters are going to try to take me to the Kenyan National Park so I can see the animals and things that I saw here in South Africa when I came for my group tour the first week in August. Okay. Any other questions about the 504 IEP while we have time? When are you coming to New Jersey? I'm working on Camden right now. Camden, New Jersey, stand up. Shout out to the Source of Knowledge bookstore. Sister Patrice just sent me a text message last night. Source of Knowledge bookstores in Newark, New Jersey. They just ordered 2 boxes of psychoacademic Holocaust. 2 boxes of psychoacademic Holocaust. Do the students have to master grade level standards? Yes, if they have a 504. In order to be promoted to any grade, you have to master grade level standards. Okay, at least be at basic. Okay, you have to, I ain't gonna say you have to master it. You don't have to be proficient, but you have to be at basic, right? Because you can move to the next grade with a C. You can move to the next grade with a C. Okay, now in college, it's a little bit different because in college, getting a C is failure, right? So in college, you pretty much have to be proficient in order to have passed the class. But in grade school, you can pass with a C. But a special ed kid does not have to master grade level standards in order to be promoted to the next grade. Mississippi, I'm working on Mississippi. I'll probably be in Jackson, Mississippi for Kwanzaa. I will probably be in Jackson, Mississippi for Kwanzaa. Africans in the continent don't consider African Americans African. I disagree with that. Brother Red Kwaku, I think it all depends on who you deal with. You got brainwashed Negroes in Africa. You got brainwashed Negroes in America. You got brainwashed Negroes in Australia. You got brainwashed Negroes in England. You got brainwashed Negroes in Canada. Okay, so let's not say that Africans don't like African Americans. That's a very blatant statement that I think is very misleading and stigmatizing. My brothers and sisters here in South Africa, they show me nothing but love. My brothers and sisters in Ghana show me nothing but love. My brothers and sisters in Liberia, okay, where else I've been? Malawi, Ethiopia, they show me nothing but love. So Egypt, they show me nothing but love. So let's not castigate an entire continent. Okay, there's almost 1 billion people in Africa. Let's not say Africans don't like African Americans. Okay, that's like the brothers saying that, you know, black women don't know how to treat black men. That's not true. Okay, you might have a few, or sisters saying black men don't know how to treat black women. You might have a few, but that's not everybody. Okay, family, it's time to check out. I'll get with y'all later. Prince of Pan-Africanism, Joe Berg Part 2.